"I didn't tell you because you'd be weird about it," she said after I learned she was sharing a hotel room with her ex. I didn't argue, just said, "Okay," and went to bed. The next morning, I moved out while she was at work. My note? Didn't want to be weird about it. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The Thursday night routine was a sacrament. I'd cook something simple like lemon garlic chicken and roasted vegetables. Qley would come in from her marketing job, kick off her heels by the door with a dramatic sigh, and pour 2 glasses of the decent Pinot Grigio we kept stocked. We'd eat at the small kitchen island, debriefing our days. It was comfortable. It was ours. At least, that's what I thought. The crack appeared subtly. That week, her phone, which usually lived screen up on the coffee table, started going face down. She'd get texts that made her smile, then quickly school her features into neutrality when she felt my glance. She mentioned a low-key industry conference coming up on Saturday. "Just a few seminars, probably boring," she'd said, spearing a piece of broccoli, "but it looks good for my annual review." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? We'd been together 3 years. We talked about maybe getting a dog next spring. Tonight, she was running late. "Last-minute prep for the conference," she texted. My laptop had died, and I needed to check a work email. I knew her password. It was our old apartment number and her dog's name, a shared secret from when we first moved in together. It felt like an intimacy, not an invasion. I opened her laptop on the kitchen counter. Her email was up, and there it was. Not even buried in a promo folder, sitting right in the center of the screen. A booking confirmation. Riverside Hotel and Suites. Check-in, Saturday, November 18th. Check-out, Sunday, November 19th. Guest name, Qley Bennett. Room type, king bed, non-smoking. Additional guest, Mark S. The air left the room. Mark, her ex-boyfriend from college, the one with the complicated friendship. The one whose texts sometimes made her laugh a little too hard. The one I'd quietly, stupidly been insecure about for years. She'd always reassured me, "He's just a friend, Alex. That chapter is so closed. You have nothing to worry about." My hand was steady as I picked up my wine glass. I took a slow sip. I read the confirmation 3 more times. The price was listed. It wasn't a conference block rate. It was a standard weekend rate for a single room. A king bed. The key turned in the door 40 minutes later. Qley breathed in all perfume and tired smiles. "What a day," she announced, heading straight for the wine bottle. "How was the prep?" I asked. My voice sounded normal. Eerily normal. "Fine, tedious," she said, pouring a generous glass. "Just printing name tags and things. You wouldn't believe the admin." "Where's the conference again? The Marriott downtown?" she said without looking at me, taking a long drink. I felt a cold clarity settle over me. "The Marriott? Not the Riverside Hotel?" She froze. The glass hovered an inch from her lips. Her eyes wide for a fraction of a second, darted to her closed laptop on the counter, then back to me. The mask of casual ease cracked, revealing calculation underneath. She set the glass down. "Why would you ask that?" "Your email was open. I saw a confirmation for the Riverside, for you and Mark." The calculation vanished, replaced by pure defensive irritation. She didn't look guilty. She looked inconvenienced, annoyed that her narrative had been disrupted. "You went through my email." Her voice was sharp, an accusation designed to flip the script. The laptop was open. The confirmation was right there. I kept my tone flat. "You're sharing a hotel room with Mark." She let out a heavy, put-upon sigh, the kind you'd use on a child who's asked why 1 too many times. She crossed her arms. "It's not a big deal, Alex. He's in town for the same conference. The rooms at the Marriott were like $300 a night. The Riverside was half that. It's just practical." "Practical?" I repeated. The word tasted like ash. "Yes, practical," she rolled her eyes, a gesture that once felt playful and now felt contemptuous. "We're splitting the cost. It's 1 night." "You didn't think to mention this? To tell your boyfriend you were planning to share a bed with your ex-boyfriend?" Her face hardened. Here it came, the preemptive strike. I didn't tell you because you'd be weird about it. She delivered the line with absolute certainty, as if stating a fundamental law of physics. You're always so insecure about Mark. You get that look. It's exhausting. I knew you'd overreact, so I just avoided the drama. It's just a room. We're just friends. You'd be weird about it. The phrase echoed in the silent kitchen. It wasn't an apology. It was a diagnosis, a condemnation of my character. The problem wasn't her secrecy. It was my inevitable, flawed reaction to it. She had made the decision for me, for us, based on my assumed deficiency. Are you going to make this a thing? She pressed, her voice dripping with exasperation. Because I'm really tired and I have a big day Saturday. I don't have the energy for one of your moods. I looked at her. I saw the woman I'd loved, the woman I'd imagined a future with. But in that moment, I saw her more clearly than ever before. I saw the dismissal in her posture, the impatience in her eyes, the utter lack of respect disguised as pragmatism. The love I felt didn't vanish. It just curdled. It transformed into a profound, quiet understanding. Arguing would be weird. Questioning would be insecure. Expressing hurt would be a mood. She had boxed me in with her language, painting any response other than compliant acceptance as a symptom of my own failure. So, I gave her the only response she'd left open for me. I took another sip of my wine, placed the glass carefully on the counter, and nodded. Okay, I said. No heat, no ice. Just a simple, factual acknowledgement. Message received. Her expression shifted from defensive irritation to confusion, then to a hint of triumph. She'd won. I wasn't making a thing. She mistook my clarity for capitulation. Okay? She asked, testing. Okay, I confirmed. I walked past her out of the kitchen. I'm going to bed. Well, good, she said to my back, the wind momentarily gone from her sails. It's not a big deal, Alex. You'll see. I didn't reply. I walked down the hall to our bedroom, closed the door softly, and got into bed. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just planned. The cold clarity was now a blueprint. Every item in the apartment was mentally cataloged as mine, hers, or ours. The ours items no longer held any meaning. They were just objects to be navigated around. The betrayal wasn't in the hotel room, not really. It was in the sigh, the eye roll, the you'd be weird about it. It was in the deliberate choice to conceal, to manipulate the truth because she judged my honest reaction as an inconvenience. She hadn't trusted me with the truth because she didn't respect me enough to handle it. She saw me as a problem to be managed, not a partner to be respected. As her breathing evened out in sleep beside me, the last of the emotional tether snapped. I felt it go, silent and final. I was already gone. I woke at 5:45 a.m. before the alarm. Qley was asleep, her back to me, a vague shape in the pre-dawn gray. I watched the slow rise and fall of her shoulders for 1 minute. This was the last. I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness. A hollow, clean neutrality. I slid out of bed with the care of a ghost. In the living room, I started with the essentials. Laptop, charger, important documents from the filing cabinet, my suitcase from the closet, my duffel bag. I packed clothes methodically. A week's worth of work attire, gym clothes, jeans. I left the sweater she'd given me last Christmas folded on the dresser. I left the silly novelty socks from our first vacation together in the drawer. The books on the shelf were easy. These were mine, those were hers. I took mine, stacking them neatly in a cardboard box I'd flattened and stored in the closet. The framed photo of us at the beach, I left it on the shelf. It was part of her story now, not mine. In the bathroom, I cleared my side of the cabinet. Toothbrush, razor, cologne, the expensive moisturizer she'd teased me for buying. I left the shared toilet paper, the half-used tube of her toothpaste, the basket of bath bombs we'd bought together. By 7 a.m., the core of my life was packed into my car, which I'd loaded through the building's back entrance to avoid the security camera pointed at the front parking lot. I made 2 trips. It was efficient, quiet. At 7:15, I heard the shower turn on. My heart rate didn't spike. I just moved to the final phase. I took a sheet of plain printer paper and a pen from the kitchen drawer. I stood there, the pen poised. What was there to say? Explanations would be weird. Justifications would be dramatic. Emotion would be a mood. Her words from last night were the perfect sterile framework. I wrote in clean block letters, Didn't want to be weird about it. My key is on the counter. Do not contact me. Alex. I placed the note in the center of the kitchen island, the holy altar of our Thursday night sacraments. I set my apartment key beside it, the metal making a soft click on the granite. I did a final walkthrough. The space looked lived in, but subtly altered. A gap on the bookshelf, an empty spot on the bathroom counter. It was the apartment of someone who had left, not someone who was coming back. The shower stopped. Time to go. I closed the front door behind me for the last time, listening for the solid thunk of the lock engaging. I didn't look back. I got into my car, which now held the tangible sum of my independence in boxes and bags. I didn't drive away immediately. I sat in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel at 10 and 2. I looked at the building, at the window of what was, for 3 more hours, still technically my apartment. I waited for the feeling, the crushing grief, the fiery anger. It didn't come. There was just a vast, quiet emptiness. Not the emptiness of loss, but the emptiness of a canvas that has been wiped clean. It was terrifying and peaceful in equal measure. My phone buzzed in the cup holder, a notification for a 9:30 a.m. meeting I'd almost forgotten, the mundane anchor of reality. I put the car in drive and pulled out of the parking lot. I drove to a boutique hotel across town, one I'd booked on my phone at 2 a.m. while lying beside her. I'd paid for a week. It was a stopgap, a sterile bubble in which to think. The clerk handed me a key card. The room was anonymous and quiet. I placed my suitcase on the luggage rack, set my laptop on the desk. I sat on the edge of the bed. Now the silence was absolute. No hum of our fridge, no distant traffic from our street, just the faint, impersonal hum of central air. I thought of her finding the note, the confusion, then the dawning comprehension, the panic. I didn't crave it, I didn't dread it. It was simply the next event happening in a parallel world that no longer intersected with mine. The feeling that finally surfaced wasn't about her at all. It was a deep, bone-level exhaustion, and underneath it the first faint spark of something else, something that felt like oxygen returning to a room that had long been starved of air. It was over, and I had been the one to end it, not with a scream, but with a whisper, not with a fight, but with a simple, devastating acceptance of what she had offered me. Nothing. I lay back on the unfamiliar bed, staring at a different ceiling. I had a list of things to do. Call my landlord, the lease was in my name, forward my mail, find a realtor. But for now, I just breathed. The weird, dramatic, moody part was over. Now the rest of my life could begin. The hotel room was a cocoon of white noise and neutrality. I slept for 12 hours straight, a deep, dreamless coma of exhaustion. When I woke on Saturday morning, the day of the conference, the silence felt like a physical presence. I ordered overpriced room service coffee and sat at the desk, powering on my laptop. The first order of business was surgical detachment. I changed all my passwords. I removed her as an emergency contact from my work files. I logged into our shared streaming accounts, the ones under my email, and changed the passwords there, too. It wasn't petty, it was administrative, closing joint ventures. My phone, which I kept on Do Not Disturb, lit up like a distress beacon when I finally looked at it. 1:42 p.m. Saturday. Alex, where are you? Did you go somewhere for work? The note? What does this mean? 3:15 p.m. Okay, this isn't funny. Call me. We need to talk. 5:08 p.m. You're really doing this over a misunderstanding. I'm at the conference. Call me. 10:31 p.m. You're being childish. You just left. You can't ghost me like this after 3 years. I read them with a clinical detachment. The progression was textbook. Confusion, annoyance, accusation. No apology. No acknowledgement of the misunderstanding being her deliberate lie. I didn't block her number yet.
I wanted to see the script play out, but I didn't respond. Silence was my only language now. Sunday brought a new tone. 9:17 a.m. Sunday. Alex, please, I'm coming home. Can we please talk when I get back? I'm sorry I wasn't more transparent. Transparent, a corporate buzzword for a personal betrayal. Not still, I'm sorry I lied, or I'm sorry I shared a bed with my ex. I drove to a storage unit I'd rented online and moved the boxes from my car. It felt good, like consolidating troops.
In the afternoon, my friend Dave called. "Dude, what is going on? Qley just called my wife, sobbing. She says you vanished and left a cryptic note. She's freaking out." I took a slow breath. "Did she tell you why?" "She said you had a fight about her going to a conference, that you overreacted." I could see it. Her version, polished for sympathy. "He got weird about a work trip and just abandoned me." "Dave, she booked a hotel room at the Riverside for Saturday night. A king bed. The reservation was for her and Mark. She told me it was a conference at the Marriott and never mentioned he was involved, let alone sharing the room. I found the confirmation. When I asked, she told me she didn't tell me because I'd be weird about it." The line was silent for a long moment. "Oh," Dave said finally. The single syllable was heavy with understanding. "Mark? Seriously?" "Seriously, man." "Yeah, okay. My wife is going to have a field day with this. She never liked how chummy Qley was with him." He paused. "What do you want us to do?" "Nothing. I just don't want to be the villain in the story she's telling. You asked, now you know." "Do you want us to not talk to her?" "That's up to you. I'm not asking anyone to choose sides. I've just chosen my own peace." The phrase felt true as I said it. By Monday, the mutual friend radar was pinging hard. Texts from a few others tentatively asking if I was okay. To each, I sent the same calm, factual reply. "Ask Qley about the Riverside hotel booking for her and Mark. Once you have her version, if you still want to talk to me, I'm here." It was a truth grenade. I wasn't arguing my case. I was just directing them to the source material and letting them draw their own conclusions. The responses were revealing. "Yikes, she told me it was a totally separate room situation. I'll talk to you later." "Wow, okay, that explains the note. Take care of yourself, Alex." Lisa, who had been Qley's closest friend before we got together, called me on Tuesday evening. Her tone was pure mediation. "Alex, hi, listen, I talked to Qley. She's really struggling. She admits she handled it poorly, not telling you about Mark, but she swears nothing happened. It was just to save money. She's devastated you left like this." "I'm sure she is," I said, looking out my hotel window at the city lights. "Can't you just hear her out? For closure, if nothing else. You loved her once." The phrase "loved her once" hit like a soft hammer. It was already in the past tense. "I heard everything I needed to that night, Lisa. The facts were in the email. Her response to being caught was to call me weird, insecure, and dramatic. That was my closure. But Mark's gone now. He was just in town for the weekend. It's not like she's choosing him." I almost laughed. She'd missed the point entirely. "This isn't about me versus Mark, Lisa. This is about respect versus contempt. She showed me contempt. I'm choosing not to live with it. I wish her well, but I'm not involved in her journey anymore." Lisa sighed, the sound of someone who'd hit a wall. "You're being really cold about this." "I'm being clear," I corrected gently. "There's a difference." I hung up. The first waves of social karma were lapping at Qley's door. Her story was leaking, and the leaks weren't in her favor. I could feel the narrative shifting even from my isolated hotel room. She was no longer the innocent girlfriend ghosted by an unstable man. She was the woman who'd hidden a hotel stay with her ex and now was facing the consequences. The quiet middle stretched. I went to work, performed normally. I found a realtor and started looking at small, modern apartments across town in neighborhoods she'd always deemed too far from the action. I started going to the gym at 6 a.m., relishing the brutal, mindless repetition. I began to sleep through the night again. And then, through the fragile grapevine of mutual acquaintances, the first whispers of Mark's true colors reached me. Dave's wife, Sarah, had a friend who knew Mark from college. "Apparently," Dave said over a beer that Friday, a week and a half after the night, "our boy Mark is a bit of a grifter.
between jobs, or more accurately, between getting fired from jobs. He wasn't there for any conference. He was crashing on a buddy's couch and saw a chance for a free night in a nice hotel with an old flame. I took a sip of my beer. It was a rich, dark stout, a taste I'd developed on my own, separate from Qley's preference for sweet ciders. Sounds about right.
Word is he was bragging about it to some people after, being real sleazy about it. I nodded. I felt no triumph, just a grim validation. The practical room share had nothing to do with conference logistics and everything to do with Mark's opportunism and Qley's poor judgment. The foundation of her justification was made of sand, and the tide was coming in. The consequences weren't a thunderclap. They were a slow, suffocating drizzle. I signed a lease on a new apartment, a sleek one-bedroom with a view of the river, not the downtown skyline she loved. Moving in was a solo, satisfying project. Every piece of furniture I bought was mine, chosen for function and my taste alone. The space echoed, but it echoed with potential, not absence. The reports from the old life trickled in, no longer sought by me, but offered by a universe that seemed bent on keeping me informed. Financial stress. Sarah mentioned it casually. So, Qley's apartment, the lease is in your name, right? She called the management company in a panic trying to get it switched to hers. They told her she'd need to requalify on her own income, and with the debt she's carrying, she didn't finish. I knew. My salary had covered the bulk of the rent. Qley's lifestyle, the Pilates classes, the nice wines, the constant stream of online packages required dual income. Alone, she was drowning. I'd paid the final month's rent as required by my lease, giving her a 30-day life raft. The clock was ticking. The Mark situation. He didn't leave town. According to the grapevine, now fertilized by Qley's own desperate confessions to remaining friends, Mark had nowhere to go. His couch surfing arrangement had expired. In a move of staggering folly, Qley let him move into our, now her, apartment. Temporarily, she'd said. Dave delivered this update with a grimace. Sarah's friend saw them arguing at the griddle last weekend, said Mark was talking down to her, calling her naive. Looked like a real prince. The image was clear. The charismatic, challenging ex was now a surly, unemployed housemate. The fantasy had curdled into a depressing reality. Professional erosion. My old colleague Ben, who worked in a building near Qley's office, sent me a text. Saw your ex at lunch. She looked rough, man. Heard through the gossip mill that some guy showed up drunk at her office last week looking for her. Caused a scene. Security got involved. Not a good look. Mark. It had to be. The instability wasn't contained in the apartment. It was bleeding into her professional world, the realm she cared so much about. Her reputation, always so carefully curated, was getting stains no amount of spin could remove. Social isolation. The friend group had quietly but decisively polarized. The ones who valued loyalty and straightforwardness drifted to my side, not with drama, but with simple, sustained presence. An invite to watch the game here, a coffee there. The ones that thrived on chaos and drama were still in Qley's orbit, but they were fewer. Lisa, the mediator, had stopped calling me. I heard she was spending a lot of time consoling Qley, a thankless task that was wearing her thin. I didn't revel in it. I observed it with the detached interest of a biologist watching an inevitable natural process. She had chosen secrecy, which bred distrust. She had chosen Mark, who was a parasite. She had chosen to disrespect me, which cost her the stabilizing force I'd provided in her life. The dominoes were falling according to a simple, brutal physics. One evening, as I was assembling a new bookshelf in my silent, clean apartment, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. A voicemail followed. Her voice was strained, scratchy from crying or shouting, stripped of its usual melodious confidence. "Alex, pick up. I know you're there. Look, I made a mistake, but you're overreacting. You just left. How could you do that to us? Do you know what you've done? Everything is a mess. Just call me back, please." There it was, the final ugly shift. No more, "I'm sorry I wasn't transparent." Now it was, "You did this to us." The blame was fully externalized. My calm exit was the original sin, not her deceit. Her mess was my fault. The entitlement was breathtaking. I deleted the voicemail. I didn't save the number.
I went back to tightening the screw on my bookshelf, ensuring it was level and strong. I was building something new, piece by piece. She was trapped in the ruins of what she'd broken, and she was just beginning to understand that the person who used to help her clean up the mess was gone for good.
The drizzle was becoming a downpour, and she was standing in it without an umbrella, all because sharing a hotel room with her ex was practical, and being honest with me would have been weird. The irony wasn't lost on me. It was the quiet, satisfying kind that doesn't need a smile. It just is. The texts became a weather pattern, erratic, stormy, then pleadingly clear. I'd stopped reading them in full after the voicemail, but notifications still flashed. I saw fragments on my lock screen, a surreal haiku of her unraveling. We need to talk about the lease. Mark is being impossible. My mom said you called her. I hadn't. I'm at my wit's end. You owe me at least a conversation. You owe me. That was the refrain. The currency of 3 years in her mind had accrued a debt I was now refusing to pay. The debt of my attention, my emotional labor, my stability. She was calling in the loan, and I had closed the bank. The first real test came via her older sister, Megan. We'd never been close. She'd always viewed me as too quiet for her vibrant sister. Her call felt like a managerial intervention. "Alex, it's Megan." Her voice was all business, no pleasantries. "We need to address this situation with Qley. She's falling apart." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. The phrase deliberately neutral, not "I'm sorry for her," just an acknowledgement of received information. She's made mistakes, obviously, but what you're doing, this silent treatment, this financial abandonment, it's cruel. You're not the man I thought you were. I let the accusation hang in the air for a beat. "What did she tell you about the cause of this situation, Megan?" "She said you had a fight about her ex being in town and you completely overreacted. You left her high and dry." "Did she mention that the fight was about me discovering an email confirmation for a hotel room she'd booked to share with said ex, a fact she'd actively hidden from me, and when confronted, told me she hid it because I'd be weird about it?" A pause, slightly shorter than Dave's had been. "She said it was just to save money. Nothing happened." "The issue isn't what may or may not have happened in the room, Megan. The issue is the lie. The disrespect, the contempt in her tone when she dismissed my feelings as weird. I chose not to accept that treatment. The financial and logistical consequences are a direct result of her choices, not my cruelty. She chose to lie. She chose to share a room with another man. She is now facing the reality of those choices, as an adult does." Megan's tone shifted from managerial to frustrated. "So you're just going to let her sink after everything? You loved her." "Past tense," I said calmly, "and I'm not letting her do anything. She is an autonomous person experiencing consequences. I'm simply no longer her shock absorber. I suggest she focus her energy on solving her problems, not on trying to manipulate me into coming back to clean them up." "You're cold, Alex. Really, really cold." The line went dead. I felt nothing, not even a flicker of guilt. Megan was part of the toxic ecosystem that had enabled Qley's entitlement. Their family motto might as well have been, "Your feelings are an overreaction to our actions." I was done with that entire language. The confrontation happened on a rainy Tuesday evening, 2 months after I'd left. I was leaving my new gym, a premium place with a parking garage. My hair was still damp from the shower, my gym bag slung over my shoulder. I was unlocking my car, a newer, quieter model I'd leased after returning the old one we'd co-signed for, when I saw her. She was leaning against a concrete pillar, looking like a ghost of herself. Her once bright eyes were shadowed, her posture slumped. She'd lost weight, but not the healthy kind. She looked frayed. "You're a hard man to find," she said. Her voice was raw. "Had to follow Dave's Instagram to figure out where you work out now." I finished unlocking the car, opened the back door, and placed my bag inside. I turned to face her,
keeping the car door between us like a polite barrier. "Qley? You just left," she burst out, the words cracking. "After 3 years, you didn't fight, you didn't yell, you just left like I was nothing, like we were nothing." I observed her pain. It was real, but it was the pain of consequence, not of remorse. I stated a boundary. You crossed it with a lie and a dismissal. Staying would have told you I accepted that treatment. I didn't. It was one night, one stupid practical decision I didn't tell you about because I knew you'd be like this. The old script, but delivered with desperate energy.
"And now you were right," I nodded. "I am like this. I don't accept lies. I don't accept being spoken to with contempt. So your assessment of me was correct. Your gamble that I'd just get over it was wrong." She blinked, thrown by my agreement. "He's gone, okay? Mark is gone. He was a parasite. He took money and he was awful. He's out of my life. It's just me now. Can we please just go get coffee? Talk?" This was the pivot. The admission of Mark's true nature, wielded as a tool for her redemption. "See, I was punished enough. Now take me back." "No," I said, my voice even. "No?" Her face crumpled, then hardened. "What, you're perfect now? You live in your fancy new life and you can't spare an hour for the woman you were going to build a future with?" "The future was based on trust and respect," I said, closing the car door. The thunk echoed in the concrete garage. "You broke the foundation. The building collapsed. Having coffee in the rubble doesn't change that." Tears spilled over, but they were angry now. The desperation was morphing into fury. "You're enjoying this. You love seeing me like this. Poor, miserable Qley who made one mistake and got destroyed for it. You're pathetic holding on to this like some grudge." I almost smiled. There it was, the true colors blazing through the tears. When manipulation fails, rage arrives. "I'm not holding on to anything," I said, opening the driver's door. "I've let it all go, including you. You're the one who followed me here. You're the one holding on." I got in the car. She slammed her hand on the roof. "Fine, walk away again. You're a coward, Alex. You're running from real emotion, from real conflict. You'll die alone in your perfect, quiet little life." I started the engine. The purr was soft and final. I rolled down the window just an inch. "Take care of yourself, Qley." As I reversed out, I saw her in the rearview mirror, standing alone under the harsh fluorescent lights, dissolving into helpless, furious sobs. I felt a distant pang, the faint echo of an old protective instinct, but it was smothered by the profound quiet of my own peace. She was a storm, and I had finally reached calm water. I didn't look back. 6 months to the day after I left the note, I was in the gourmet grocery store near my new apartment. I was buying ingredients for a dinner I was cooking for Sarah and Dave, a thank you for their unspoken loyalty. My cart held thick ribeye steaks, fresh herbs, wild mushrooms, and a bottle of expensive Cabernet. It was a cart of contentment, of a life built on solid ground. I was comparing 2 types of sea salt when I felt a presence hovering at the end of the aisle. I looked up. It was Qley. The contrast was so stark it was almost theatrical. I was in well-fitted dark jeans and a soft, high-quality sweater, fresh from a recent weekend hike. I looked healthy, rested, solid. She looked diminished. She wore a red vest over a white shirt, the uniform for the cell phone kiosk in the mall across the street. Her hair was pulled back in a severe ponytail. In her hands was a small basket holding a cheap frozen dinner, a box of off-brand tea bags, and a discounted bar of chocolate. The portrait of quiet exhaustion. Our eyes met. Hers widened, flooded with a chaotic mix of shock, hope, and shame. Mine registered her, then returned to the salts. I chose the flaky Malden, placed it in my cart, and began to push forward, intending to pass her with a nod. "Alex," her voice was a whisper, scraping out of her. You look good." I stopped the cart. Politeness, a habit from a dead civilization, made me pause. "Thanks. How are you?" The question was empty of investment, the way you'd ask a cashier. A bitter, thin smile touched her lips. "Not great, honestly." She seemed to gather herself, her gaze dropping to my full cart, then back to her meager basket. "Mark, he cleaned out my savings before he left, for bills. He never paid a cent. I lost the apartment. I'm at my mom's, just working this for now." She gestured weakly at her vest. I nodded. "I'm sorry to hear that." The words were automatic,
clean, a social script. I wasn't sorry for her. I was acknowledging a report of misfortune. The script, for her, was an opening. Her eyes brimmed. "I miss us," she said, the words rushing out. "I think about it every day, what I threw away. I made a terrible, terrible mistake, the biggest of my life. Can we ever? Is there any way?" I didn't let her finish. I didn't need to hear the plea. My voice was calm, definitive, free of any cruelty or gloating. It was simply factual.
"Qley, that chapter's closed. I've moved on. Completely." She flinched it completely. "Moved on to what? To who?" "To my life," I said, not taking the bait about another woman. "I've moved cities, actually. Accepted a director position with the firm. I start next month." "You're leaving?" The panic in her voice was visceral. My physical departure would make her loss permanent, geographical, a final nail. The opportunity was too good to pass up. I checked my watch, a smooth automatic piece I'd bought as a gift to myself for the promotion. I actually need to go, meeting my realtor to close on a condo before I move. A condo, a director position. The facts landed like stones. I wasn't just surviving without her, I was thriving in a way that was visibly, tangibly beyond the life we'd had together. Her face crumpled, the careful hope shattered, revealing the raw despair beneath. "So that's it," she whispered, a tear tracing a path through her light makeup. "After everything we were, you just become a stranger. You buy fancy salt and a condo, and I'm just a girl in a red vest buying a frozen dinner?" I looked at her then, really looked. I saw the ghost of the woman I'd loved, buried under poor choices and their bitter harvest. I felt the last tiny filament of old connections snap, soundlessly. "It was the moment you chose to hide that hotel room," I said, my voice quiet but absolute in the hushed, overly bright aisle. "The moment you decided my trust was less important than your convenience. My feelings were weird, my reaction was a mood. You made your choice. This," I gestured not at her basket, but at the space between us, "is just the landscape after that choice." I saw the understanding finally, truly dawn in her eyes. It wasn't about Mark. It wasn't about a single night. It was about a fundamental disrespect she deemed acceptable. And I, the man she judged as too safe, too boring, too weird, had possessed a quiet strength she never anticipated, the strength to walk away and never look back. "Take care of yourself," I said. It was neither a wish nor a curse. It was a dismissal. I pushed my cart past her. I didn't glance back. I walked toward the checkout, the wheels rolling smoothly on the polished floor. I paid for my steak and my wine and my fancy salt. I loaded the bags into the trunk of my car. As I drove away, I didn't think about her standing there. I thought about the sear I'd get on the ribeyes, the wine Dave would bring, the laughter that would fill my new apartment. I thought about the view from my future condo in a new city, where the past was just a closed book on a shelf. The sky was clear, the road ahead was open, and the quiet in my heart was no longer the quiet of emptiness, but the profound, unshakable quiet of peace. She had tried to make me feel small, weird, and insignificant. In the end, her attempt had been the catalyst that showed me my own size, my own strength. And for that, I supposed, in the most detached way possible, I could almost thank her. Almost. But not quite. She didn't deserve that much space in my head. Not anymore. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.